So, once again, we are going to have a look at our favourite T-boy over at Conservative Home, William Atkinson. And he has written a kind of an interesting piece on what's been going on in New Zealand. Now, if you don't know, there's been a recent election going on in New Zealand. And essentially, what it seems to be at the moment is that a right-wing party has taken overhold of the of at least the parliament, shall we say. And of course, the big thing about this is that New Zealand uses a form of PR called the mixed member system. Um, and that's sort of their version of PR. Again, a lot better version than we have, of course, at our own under first past the post. But Will Atkinson, from his many years of writing and my years of sort of, yeah, like you say, whole reason I read Conservative Home is because not only is it my favorite comedies website, but it is also a place where conservative commentators will write things they would never ever say to a general audience. This website is entirely directed at people who are already conservative, and as a result, they go on and they say some crazy, wacky things that they would never normally say to, like, I don't know, in the Daily Mail or the general sort of, Daily Express or even the Telegraph or the Tory Graph, shall we say. They would never say it openly there. But here, oh boy, all bets are off. It is full conservative all the time. And like I say, when it comes to this looming conservative civil war, that is just around the corner, it is going to be played out heavily on Conservative Home. And in particular, William Atkinson has been an interesting person to follow. He's a young conservative having a somewhat midlife Brexit crisis. He was at a conference of the National Conservative Party a couple of weeks ago when he fully admitted he would be rather watching Eurovision. And his bizarre reaction in almost the first time conversing with what he put as regular members of the Conservative Party and found them, shall we say, not too much to his liking. But like I say, that's William Atkinson. Like I say, he's an interesting fellow. I don't know if I'd ever get the chance to talk to him, but he'd be interesting. He'd be an interesting conversation, to say the least. I don't know what we'd talk about. At that point, maybe we need a moderator to help guide and sort of steer the conversation. But it would be an interesting conversation, to say the least. So we're going to go over his piece recently. And like I say, he's written this about sort of New Zealand, their elections, and more specifically, the part at the end where he mentions, quote, the perils of PR. At this point, I wish I had the Perils of Penelope Pitstop playing in the background with the Phantom going, yes, ha ha ha. But no, never mind. We can't very well use that. Like I say, copyright, etc., all that jazz. But we can, of course. But imagine the perils of PR that old William Atkinson is worried about. And it's kind of interesting. So before we do go getting into this, and of course Will's comments on the perils of PR and the New Zealand sort of political system, please do remember to click on the like, share, and subscribe button. And of course, down below there are links to my Patreon page, the one-off donation link called Buy Me Coffee, where you can buy me coffee. There is the YouTube thank you button, and of course the Pony Club down below as well. So let's go on. Pardon me. There we go. Let's go on to have a talk about this. And like I say, this is about when you look at sort of New Zealand at the moment, a sort of very sort of national, New Zealand National Party seems to be won onto victory of this. And Will's sort of interesting has a comment on it because, like I say, all this is about sort of what's going on in New Zealand. And while it is somewhat interesting, this is the part that I want to go over. So this is then the final lesson then for conservatives in this hemisphere. It might be a laugh grabbing a selfie with Farage in the bar of the Midland Hotel. But God bless first past the post for ensuring a formable, stable right wing government in this country isn't more difficult than it already is. Um, First things first, a stable right wing government that has been your own party who has been actively um, decapitating leaders, getting rid of, to be honest, anyone who is seemingly competent from their party over the matter of Brexit, and then just going even more insanely hard right because that seems to be their answer. Take, for example, Suella Braverman, who just goes, "Well, we went right wing." And that didn't seem to work. So instead of maybe looking to see if going more right wing or at least right wing was the answer, no, we're going to double down even more on going hard right wing. Um, Needless to say, like I say, this has been your own entire fault in this regard. Um, no one else's. And I find it funny that you also say, "Oh yeah, it's a laugh to grab a selfie with Farage." But here's the thing: if we did have a PR party, given the current way that it is going, and let's say there was a potential where the Conservatives would be in power, but they had to ally themselves with maybe like a Faragist group, be it a resurgent UKIP or the Reform Party, whichever vehicle Farage is leading at that particular time. Um, oh yes, Farage would absolutely love to be able to torpedo your government at a moment's notice if he didn't get his way. Absolutely. There is no suggestion that Farage would not do that. He's been praising what has been going on in America with the Republicans basically eating themselves over getting rid of Kevin McCarthy and potentially putting in someone in like Jim Jordan. Um, he has been egging that on since the very, very beginning. But anyway, you continue. You say, as Germany struggles to contain the ADF, our 2.5 party system can be classed as a model of stability. This whole idea that first past the post is the only way you can ever have a stable government. Your own party has just proven that ain't the case. That no, once the crazies get into power, which we have seen, mostly due to Brexit and their lust for power and sheer incompetence and a very, very keen overemphasizing or at least overestimations of their own abilities, that has been very much of your own party's making. And first past the post did not lead to that. If anything, it doesn't matter because whatever system you have, there can always be some form of political instability. That's just politics. One of the big things that anti-PR people always say is that, oh, if we go PR, we'll have a completely unstable government. No, we won't. Germany is a perfect example. The ADF are at what, 25, I believe, 30%, I think. They have been pretty much contained. And if you are worried about that situation happening sort of in the UK, then I would have to ask you, how would you confront someone like Nigel Farage, who is promoting continuous forms of conservative libertarianism and absolute free market fundamentalism, which is not very popular? And as we saw when Liz Truss took power, pretty much almost collapsed the entire economic system. Like I say, it'd be very interesting to see what your response to that would be. Anyway, you'd have continued. Keir Starmer's increasing aversion to any form of constitutional tinkering should hopefully mean that proportional representation is once again off the table for the foreseeable future. Um, I don't think it is at all. If you look really at the PR movement as it is now, there is more hype, more enthusiasm for PR than back in 2012 when we had the referendum on it. There is more of an appetite for it more than ever. And while Starmer has cut back on, uh, reforming some of the measures of the House of Lords, I think he should go full for it. But I sort of agree with him. It, reforming the House of Lords will spend a lot of political capital, and to be honest, there's a lot more pressing issues really for him to take to. I'm fine with him cutting back on some of the stuff. I'm fine with that, but it doesn't mean that the House of Lords goes away. It just means that it continues to be a complete, absolute festering canker that is on our democracy. It is not, the most democratic thing ever for us to have. I think the House of Lords should be consigned to the dustbin of history. If we really want to move forward and proclaim that we are an amazing democracy, the House of Lords is the constant, anchor around our neck that shows that we really aren't. Especially when I see, or I've seen at least a lot of people complain about, Iran and the fact that, you've got, religious leaders who have a lot of power in Iran. There are bishops in the House of Lords who have a say and numerous times use religious uh, texts in the House of Lords to justify their voting position. I'm not comfortable with that. I am really not comfortable with that. That should not exist in our political system. Like I say, I want to see, to be honest, the House of Lords completely gone. And I think, again, reforming our voting system would improve our politics. So, but he continues. But a year is a long time in politics, and some form of PR, or at least another referendum on it, would be an inevitable price for the Liberal Democratic support for Labour if Starmer somehow conspires to chuck away his significant poll lead. First of all, why would that lose him his poll lead? If anything, that would gain him support because Will doesn't seem to have looked at the desire not only in the Labour Party, in the Lib Dem Party for proportional representation, and then he doesn't even go to look at his own political party. Remember, the last time that we covered talk of PR on this website was from a London chair member who was putting forward a conservative case for changing to PR, that we cannot, that her own party should not ignore PR, that it has to admit that its time is coming, and that as much as the Conservatives want to try and block and stymie it again and again, eventually its time will come, and then we will be put in a position where, and the Conservatives will be put in a situation where they cannot get more than what I think it's 30% of the vote, which will mean that they are locked out of power. And that means that they will have to ally themselves with people like Farage. And you say, oh, yes, it might be fun to, grab a selfie with Farage. But you will be put in a situation where the Conservatives will have to link arms with Farage, and Farage will pull the Conservatives in a really far right position. That's what he's already done. That's what he's succeeded in. That's why he was there in Manchester, because his long held dream of pushing the Conservative Party to being a more hard right party has finally won. He's achieved his two objectives of leaving the European Union and of course pushing the Conservative Party into a more hard right party. He's succeeded on both those counts. So anyway, that might be his sort of lesson to Conservatives for this, but it's what we normally hear from anti-PR campaigners, that PR quote isn't a stable system, that it quote doesn't work, that have to go into factionalism, etc. Well, again, first past the post, and the chaos that we've had and seen, and continuing chaos that we see, doesn't show that your own party is highly stable, and you are going to go probably next month in particular incredibly hard. I mean, I'd be very interested to see what Will's view on the fact that you've got an ex-prime minister releasing an alternative budget. Yes, highly not the, shall we say, the paragon of stability Will would like to put forward for our own political system currently. But hey, there you go. So that's William Atkinson, and of course, the perils of PR. Hardly, shall we say, perilous or worrying, to say the least. But as always, thank you very much, of course, for watching. And of course, as always, we'll see you all next time.